रोशनी का कारवां।
This podcast is brought to you by Score Foundation.
ये है रोशनी, रोशनी, रोशनी का कारवां, रोशनी। Eyeway, ये है रोशनी का कारवां।
Hi, my name is George Abraham and welcome to Eyeway Conversations. My guest today is Pramit Bhargava, the Louie Voice Control man. Hi, Pramit, welcome.
Thank you, George. Wonderful to be here.
So, this Louie Voice Control, tell us about it.
Okay, so Louie Voice Control is a voice app and the idea is very simple. Just give voice commands to Louie. Think of Louie like a virtual friend. Louie will take your voice commands and allow you to do each and everything within popular apps. So for example, let's say if you take Uber, for example. So Louie will allow you to do end-to-end Uber booking, right from selecting your destination down to even, selecting on how you want to pay. Once the booking is done, it will tell you the PIN, how far the driver is. You can call, message, basically each and everything within Uber can be done with voice. And this is really what the concept of Louie Voice is. And George, if it is okay, can we just show a quick demo of Louie in action so that this whole concept becomes much clearer?
That will be lovely.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So what we'll do is, of course, when I said voice, the first thing that must have come to everybody's mind is, there is Google Assistant, there is Siri. So what's so great about Louie? How is it different? So we'll take Uber booking and we'll show it with Google Assistant first, then Siri, and then we'll show Louie in action. Right. So Joe, if you can just put it quickly, the demo.
Let's now book Uber with Google, then Siri, and then with Louie. Hey Google, book Uber for golf course.
Here's what I found.
Oh boy, only Google search results. No good.
Okay, so what happened here is that more often than not, Google Assistant will open just the Google search results, which of course doesn't help. If you're lucky, it might open Uber with the right destination, but that happens rarely. Basically, you can't depend upon Google Assistant if you want to book Uber. So that's the bottom line. Otherwise, Google Assistant is, of course, a great voice assistant. Great for a lot of things, not when you want to, use popular apps end to end.
Right. So let's see what, do you think Siri will do it? Let's see what Siri
Let's
does.
see.
Yeah.
Hey Siri, book Uber for golf course. Gone silent completely.
Okay, so Siri unfortunately doesn't really do anything other than, this time it went silent. It might otherwise just open Uber and then go silent. But that's it. It doesn't really do anything beyond that.
Yeah. So how does Louie deal with the situation?
Right, Joe?
Hey Louie.
Hello, Pramit. Which app would you like to open?
Book Uber Go for golf course.
Opening Uber. Just a moment. Setting it up. Okay. Searching for destination. Your pickup location is pickup, work. Your destination is Golf Course Road. Payment method, Amazon Pay. Good to go with Uber Go 608 rupees and 79 paise. Confirm, edit, or cancel.
Confirm.
Okay, please wait, requesting a ride for you.
This is good.
Requesting ride. Your booking is confirmed. PIN for this ride is 2281. Your driver is arriving in 5 min. Driver profile, 4.9 star rating. DL1RT7335, white Maruti Suzuki Wagon-R. Your driver Nikhil, call or message.
Message.
Speak your message.
I'm wearing a red shirt.
Got it. I am wearing a red shirt. Send, rewrite, continue writing or cancel.
Send.
Message sent.
Okay. So like you saw, essentially, George, what it did was that it took my command, it understood that I want to go with which ride, where I want to go. And then it, like you saw, it just did end to end everything.
That's right.
It kept opening one Uber screen after another and kept, taking my commands and kept doing things. So that's how Louie works, actually.
So what are some of the other apps that Louie engages with?
Okay, so we started with WhatsApp because that tends to be the most common, way of connecting with everybody.
Yeah.
So we did WhatsApp, Uber, YouTube because YouTube is, again, by the way, I mean, what I have been picking up is that it's probably the most popular app amongst the visually impaired.
Yeah.
So again, what we do is when we do an app, we also add value. So like I'm on YouTube, so one of the very irritating things are these ads which run. And
That's
nowadays
right.
they've been running lots and lots of ads. So Louie, there is a setting by which Louie will automatically skip ads.
Yeah.
So we have built in that kind of value adds. Then we did Gmail. So everything on your email, for example, even things like forward, CCC, BCC, just very precisely, how an email needs to go, dictation, all that is there on Gmail. Google search, which again, a lot of users are asking for, is something very important. And having that compatibility with the browser, being able to read articles. Then we have done, of course, things like contacts, phone calling, text messaging. Even here, simple things like you want to create a new contact, you want to edit a contact, you have missed a call. You can go into missed call logs, save the contact, call back, block it. So all of that functionality is there. And by the way, contacts, phone calling, and text messaging, because they themselves don't require internet, they can actually work without internet also in an offline mode.
Right.
Then we have done Facebook, Messenger, Play Store. We are just about to release Spotify and Twitter.
If you know of anyone with vision impairment who needs guidance on living life with blindness, please share the Eyeway National Toll-Free Helpline number 1-800-5320-469. The number is 1-800-5320-469.
Another area which blind people use the phone very extensively for is for financial transactions, using mobile banking apps or maybe using Google Pay or Paytm. Have you reached a stage where Louie can manage those for you?
So, okay. So because see here, when we handle payments and banks, in terms of capability, can we handle it? Of course, we can handle it. So for example, if you remember, even 2-3 years back, WhatsApp used to have payments. Then it disappeared for a while. It has come back again.
Yeah.
So we used to handle WhatsApp payments, but then, reason why we are not doing it right now, because we have also built this SDK, the software development kit, so now we are saying that, look, why don't we work directly with the bank? In fact, right now we are talking to one bank. And we are saying that, look, we'll work with them, design with them. So whatever privacy issues, security issues are, because, it may require a MPIN, for example, it may require OTP.
Yeah.
So all of that we do in conjunction with the bank rather than doing it on our own. So that's the only reason why we haven't done it so far, but we plan to do it as we go forward.
Now, you mentioned SDK. What exactly is SDK and how is it going to kind of benefit the blind user eventually?
Okay, so just like Louie Voice is the only app of its kind, which can, there is in fact, no other app right now in the world which can do this end-to-end voice enabling of any app. So similarly, now we have taken SDK for two reasons. See, one is that we can, of course, do apps on our own. But if we can provide a software plugin to any app, so let's say if you take a food ordering app, they can take our software plugin, integrate it within their app, and their app will become fully voice enabled. So what it will allow us to do is that many more apps can get voice enabled much faster. That's one. Secondly, we can now do iPhone as well. So any app in the world, Android or iOS, can be voice enabled by this SDK. And thirdly, which is very important, George, is that how do we sustain ourselves? Because right now we are a team of 23, out of which there are some 15 developers. Yeah. So how do we create sustainability? Because you can create the best app with best social impact, but if you can't sustain yourself, this whole thing dies. Yeah. So for revenue generation, we are looking at using this SDK, and we get into a revenue partnership with the companies, with the apps concerned. So the whole idea being is that this consumer app will still remain. Whichever app we voice enable on SDK is also available on the consumer app, and we can keep the consumer app either free or highly affordable at a low price.
So this is very interesting, and I think it's going to be very revolutionary when it comes to accessibility and blind people getting into the digital world. Is this application of Louie and this voice-enabled kind of operation restricted to mobile phones, or will it also move on to tablets and laptops and so on?
Okay, so see, it's always important to keep a very strong focus. Now, this is, I'll tell you where, when I built it, what was going through in my mind. I said, look, today, smartphones, Android or iPhone, or iOS, these are the ones which are really, they go in our pockets. We are completely dependent. Probably, we don't realize, but probably 80% of the activities that we do in a day are, somewhere smartphone based.
Yeah.
So what we have said is that for a good time to come, we'll only focus on Android and iOS and just make sure we do a great job of it. And that for some reason, nobody else is doing it as well, right? So this is where all our focus is. And as we go forward, we look at other platforms, but I think this will keep us pretty busy for next 2 to 3 years. And what we are also looking at, George, is, so we currently have users in some 107 countries. Right now, the app is only in English. So to one other aspect of accessibility is also how can we put in more languages and put in languages in a manner that, it's a day-to-day lingo. Yeah. So George, for example, if you permit me, I'll just show a demo of how we have handled Hindi.
Okay.
So Hindi, a lot of other people have also done it, but they have done it as what I would call Shuddh Hindi. Yeah. And today, unfortunately, even my mate will say, "Bhaiya, location share kar dena." Right. I mean, she wouldn't know location ka Hindi kya hai, or share how to speak. So we have done exactly that. So we have done a combination of English, which is what we use day to day. So we'll just quickly show you, Joe.
अपना मैसेज बोलें। मैं घर पर ही हूँ। मैंने सुना, मैं घर पर ही हूँ। भेजें। न्यू लाइन से लिखो। अपना मैसेज बोलें। आपको थोड़ी देर में कॉल करती हूँ। मैंने सुना, मैं घर पर ही हूँ। आपको थोड़ी देर में कॉल करती हूँ। भेजें। सेंड। मैसेज भेजा गया। लोकेशन शेयर करो। वर्तमान लोकेशन भेजें या लाइव लोकेशन। करंट लोकेशन। वर्तमान लोकेशन शेयर की गई। ठीक है, लेटेस्ट मैसेज। दोपहर 2:16 पहुंच गया। इस मैसेज में लोकेशन मैप भी शामिल है।
अच्छा, लोकेशन मैप भी शामिल है उसमें।
So basically, you got the idea. So your user can give a command in Hindi, in English, and it will just work like a day-to-day lingo. And the same, so we right now are working on something like 20 languages across the world, and we'll have the combination of either doing a pure language. So like, for example, we're doing Spanish, which is purely keeping the South American, Spanish, US, Mexico in mind. But we can also do a combination. So for example, when we do Tamil, it will be combination of Tamil and English. Yeah. Tamil English or whatever, whichever we call it. So that's how, so both capabilities are there.
So today, as now, I think you've been around for a few years now. Right. And so Louie Voice Control, this app, how many countries does it operate in and how many languages does it operate in?
So right now only in English, but in about 107 countries, we have users across the world. And like I said, now we are getting into, newer languages. So we'll soon be launching the English version, followed by Spanish, followed by Bengali, and so on.
Right. This sounds very exciting and something to look forward to, especially with the world going digital. I think this is going to be great.
To support our work with the blind and visually impaired, you can visit the donate page on our website www.scorefoundation.org.in. Please note www.scorefoundation.org.in.
Tell me a little bit about your life before you encountered blindness.
Okay, so so this was my, I think, a usual life of just wanting to do well in career in life. So I did my engineering, computer engineering from IIT BHU in way back in 1989. Then I straight away went to IIM Bangalore, then joined Hindustan Unilever, and I was mostly in marketing, building businesses, running businesses, that kind of space all through. I was in Motorola, retail, healthcare, multiple sectors. And at that time, I think, what is in your mind is essentially, how do I move up the corporate ladder? Essentially, all those materialistic things that you think about. So I had exactly the same mindset.
So when actually did blindness visit you, and how did it come to you?
See, 22 years back, when I was with Hindustan Unilever, so I was given a medicine for joint pains.
Right.
Now the joint pains disappeared. So that was a wonderful thing. So there are no longer any joint pains. They were extremely painful, but it impacted on the retina. Right. So even at that time, I developed this condition called bullseye on the macula. And then, and it is irreversible. But then doctors felt maybe it will stay stable. I could get some correction with the specs. So I continued working, but then, it just kept dropping. And about 12 years back, this is when I was doing a startup in healthcare. Yeah. And suddenly the vision dropped so drastically that, it just jolted me. So I suddenly realized that I could actually sign earlier using some plus 12 or 13, some kind of very thick spec. And then suddenly I saw it getting wavy. And suddenly I saw, I just can't see anything at all, can't read anything. So I think that really shook me up. So it was quite a transformation from, suddenly getting hit with a disability.
So how did you deal with that situation emotionally, physically, and intellectually?
So initially it was tough, right? So because what happens is, you might have been prepared for it. You are, you sort of know your vision is dropping. But the moment it hits you, it really hits you. And I think what happened, I mean, this is now my theory as I'm now like a wiser me about 12 years back later. What I realized is, what happens when somebody gets hit with disability, people around him, friends, family, they are all concerned, and they all tend to say, oh, poor guy, let us help him. Now, what I was realizing is they were indeed helping me. But then what was happening, even if somebody were to call me, they'll pick up the phone, they'll say, this person is calling, and then, I'll pick it up, or they'll click on the screen and give it to me. But then what I'm realizing, that slowly I was becoming so dependent that I was just losing confidence. I had no confidence left. 3-4 years I was at home. And I was realizing that, look, unless I can start doing things on my own, I will not get my confidence back, irrespective of the amount of help others may be giving me. This is where, I actually discovered, I didn't know that there are any blind organizations, by the way, George, at that time. I didn't know any other visually impaired. Yeah. So I was at home. I, one day discovered something called TalkBack. So I presumed that this will talk back to me. But when I turned it on, the entire family got shaken up because everybody said, oh, this phone has got locked, how to use it. So we had to go on to Google, figure out how to, get rid of this damn thing. That's actually, that was the first impression. But then, then I saw some YouTube videos, figured out how to use it. And I can tell you, this completely changed the life. And then when I started on PC, similarly, I figured out NVDA. Just because it sounded like a fancy name, I said, NVDA sounds fancy. Let me try it out. And you can imagine when I installed it, suddenly wherever I'll take my mouse and suddenly it will speak up. Things which I otherwise just had no clue what's happening. Yeah. So I think it just opened a new window. And so therefore, I mean, I can tell you how important this whole accessibility is. And we need to, create accessibility solutions with that view that, okay, how can this person now do things independently, which is extremely important, I think, for all of us.
So this transition, which you took 3 to 4 years, now I can make out from what you said that TalkBack and NVDA had a role to play, because they kind of showed you definite light at the end of the tunnel.
Correct.
But how did people around you, I believe you were married, I guess your other family members also would have been around, your friends would have been around. How did all that work out for you?
So honestly, see, just like I didn't know how to deal with it, they also didn't. Other than, of course, they were helping me and everything. But then, how do you come out of it? I think so. There was this, that's why it took 3-4 years, because there is this whole internal battle. You don't want to be, sort of just fade out in life. You want to come back, but that confidence is not there. But I think I got help at the right moment. So, for example, like I said, some of these NVD, etc., family, of course, helped me, figure it out, how to use it more effectively. Then I think friends started helping me, because I tell you, when I really got my confidence back is because some friends actually helped me get some consulting assignments.
Right.
And that is when, first day I went to the office of the company where I was doing consulting. And I wasn't sure what I'll do. But then, at the end of the day, I suddenly realized, oh, boy, I'm 95%, as good as I used to be.
Yeah.
And I realized, look, I mean, I can do everything. Once in a while, I can't read something. I can, just ask a colleague, shamelessly take their help. There's nothing wrong. So suddenly that confidence came back so fast and quick. I mean, from then on, I didn't really look back. And then, of course, you start, just becoming better and better at doing things on your own.
So when did you hit upon the jackpot of, or the jackpot idea of Louie?
Actually, I didn't look. So just to tell you, so this story is that, I was working in corporate, then I was doing this startup, then this whole vision thing happened, then I closed that startup, got into consulting after 3-4 years. So you can imagine the mindset. In the mindset, there was no thought of any startup, because startups, first thing that hits you is, oh, it's risky. Right. So I was just wanted to continue doing consulting. Now, you might have heard of Sequoia Capital. It's a large leading venture capital fund. I mean, I think it's among the world's top 3 venture capital funds.
Yeah.
So I was meeting their managing director. I wanted to get some consulting assignments, and he's the one. He kept asking me about all these accessibility solutions. And then he's the one, he said, look, why are you not building apps for visually impaired people like yourself? You are a computer engineer, you have run these businesses and all. So do this. Why? I mean, he said consulting is all nonsense. So I think he's the one who sort of really pushed me into it. This is like almost 5 years back. 1 year it took us to, like you said, to see sometimes what happens. Then I thought, okay, I'll build something. But then what do you build? And this is when, and by the way, George, we are all very good at criticizing apps. Oh, this is not good. That is not open. This gentleman turned it around on me and said, okay, enough of that. You tell me what is a good app that you will build.
Yeah.
And I had no solution. But then, a friend helped me book Uber. And that is when this idea came. This whole idea of a virtual friend takes my commands, does continuous interaction with me, gets things done end to end. And Uber, I think, was a perfect example, because, because if I can do Uber, I can move around. If I can do WhatsApp, I can be socially connected. I am talking to people, I'm connected with them. So suddenly I felt that, look, if with voice, it's such a natural way. I mean, right now we are using talking to each other in that natural way. So I said, if things can be done with voice commands end to end, how wonderful it would be. So that's when I said, I'm going to build Louie.
So how did you get your team of developers kind of excited about the idea, and how did you actually get them to stay with you and see you through this journey?
Okay. So I think, before, I think most critical thing for any startup is how do you get off the ground, because you need some initial funding and so on.
Sure.
So that way we were lucky, because the MD at Sequoia Capital, he helped out with that. And then we got some big name investors. So for example, the person who headed Google India, in fact, he was heading Google India when he invested money in Louie, and he was very clear Google Assistant will not be doing what we are working on.
Yeah.
So I think we were lucky that we kept raising funding. And then, of course, it was not initially, let me tell you, it was not easy to get these developers, because a sighted developer, and I've seen you still 40-50% fall off the moment they heard, oh, it's an app for blind, visually impaired. And not because they will like to help, but just that sometimes they feel, oh, I know nothing about it. So we initially had this challenge. So you won't believe it. We had to actually buy blindfolds, and we put on blindfolds on our developers, because what will happen otherwise, they'll do something and I'll say, look, it's not working for me. They say, no, it's working. See on the screen, it's working perfectly well. Yeah. So then that whole thought that it's for a blind person, and there was also a challenge to making them use talkback. See, I can tell you how most sighted people do not like the idea of using a screen reader. You can imagine. So these guys were told that, look, you have to develop it with talkback running on your mobile phone.
Yeah.
Right. So all that was initial challenge, I think. And then we hired one or two other visually impaired people. We right now have a blind person also in the team. So slowly, when they saw me, when they saw her using the phone, I think we all then, and we started seeing the results. When, how many businesses do you get blessings? When people across the world started saying, oh, you're doing something nice, keep doing it. I think then we were on a roll. Then now, in fact, it's not difficult at all to attract developers, because they know it's a very advanced leading technology that we are working on.
So just switching track a little bit,
Yeah.
You and your wife, for example, you were married even before you
Right.
met with blindness. How did blindness kind of enhance or modify your relationships and the kind of activities that you might have been doing as a family or as a couple? What was the kind of change? Was there any change in the way you lived your life?
It's a wonderful question. So there were changes and there were no changes. So, for example, both the kids, right? Now,
Yeah.
of course, we wanted them to, grow up normally. So they still did a lot of things on their own. But there are times, when they want the father also to be around. So there were times when, I would be in their football matches or badminton matches, and they, so, I mean, you still cheer them and all of that, though, I may not really contribute to, now teaching them and
Yeah.
saying that, okay, if the ball is swinging, you would sort of, do it like this or play with them.
Yeah.
Those. So for example, I'll throw, on cricket, I'll throw the ball at them, that kind of thing. But a lot of things again, because like I said, in fact, I became proficient in cooking post my vision drop. Because again, I took it as a challenge and said, look, because if my wife is going to be, more, drop the kids, pick them up, this, that, etc. So, how can I sort of help, especially in those 3-4 years when I was at home?
Yeah.
So I think our lives changed dramatically, and I think we all have to adjust. We all have to adjust to the new reality. It's not easy at all. I mean, let me not make it sound easy. And also, just remember, when 3-4 years I was at home, I was not earning anything at all.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, there's a lot of pressure, financial pressure, which comes. A lot of fear grips you. This can happen, that can happen. Your mind goes completely wild. So it wasn't an easy journey for the family as well.
Yeah.
But now, of course, when I look back, they're all proud. We just got featured on NDTV also. Yesterday, midday newspaper featured us. So now people sort of, feel okay, something great. But I think everybody forgets, the challenges that were really there.
So now, obviously, you are in a space which you're very passionate about. So, do you have anything called hobbies, which normally people have outside their profession? Is there something called a hobby, or is this Louie your passion and hobby?
I'm a lot into audiobooks. In fact, if I just talk of, I hear books, but I'm a voracious reader, hearer of books. So I'm into audiobooks, podcast. I'm into spirituality. Spirituality, in fact, is something that I really spend a lot of time on, especially, actually everyday meditation and stuff like that.
So what are some of the audio platforms that you might recommend to our listeners?
See, I would strongly recommend podcasts. In India, podcasts are not very popular. And I can tell you, just download any app. I use Podbean, which is completely, you can also use Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. They're completely accessible.
Yeah.
Now, the beauty in podcasts is today there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts of all things. So, for example, my day, I'll tell you, starts with listening to BBC News, to Financial Times, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. I mean, those are my interests. So I keep completely abreast of technology, what's happening in the world. There are a whole lot of human podcasts, spirituality podcasts, book recommendations, all kind of things. Any interest you have, you will find podcasts. You're interested in music, there are podcasts around that. So I would say podcast is something that we really, can really dramatically open again a new window for us.
Right. And tell me a little bit about your kids and your wife. What do they do, and what state of life have they reached?
Okay, so my wife is now, a homemaker essentially. She used to do some consulting work on and off, mostly with NGOs.
Yeah.
My daughter is doing her master's in economics. She's actually studying in the US right now at Georgetown University, second year.
Yeah.
And my son is right now in the school. So, for him, there is still time. He's enjoying life. Let me put it this way.
Right. So thank you so much, Pramit, to take time out and speak to us at Eyeway Conversations, and wish you the very best.
Thank you, George, so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Eyeway, ये है रोशनी का कारवां.
This podcast was brought to you by Score Foundation.
ये है रोशनी, रोशनी, रोशनी का कारवां. रोशनी. Eyeway, ये है रोशनी का कारवां.